always funny. It's like it's slow. No judgment against Instagram, but what the fuck, Instagram?
I think by now
Right?
I have that figured out.
Oh wow, that is taking it. All right, there we go. All right, here we are for an episode of Dualistic Unity Social, and I just wanted to kick this off by saying that I'm excited for whatever the hell is about to happen in Dualistic Unity, because we're going to be hanging out in person a lot more in the very near future. And that gives us a lot of opportunity to do a lot of other things. And we've been looking at various different skits, conversations, videos, things like that, events. We've got a marathon coming up for Fidelium in the very near future. Very excited about that. You can help support Fidelium by just watching, sharing, commenting, being part of the conversation, and listening to their incredible music when they live stream with us. But that said, we've got some ideas. And right now we've got this kind of ongoing back and forth happening about a dialogue between two priests and a series of dialogues, in fact, between two priests looking at their own belief and why it's there, having moments of self honesty while having a discussion. And I'm just so very excited about this series. And so I was looking around online for a convincing priest outfit, because you don't want something that looks too costumey, right? Like you want something that looks legit, but also screams priest. So I've been looking around. There's a lot of options. You know, there's the very subtle collar and black shirt, wearing the belt, you know, that guy. There's also the full-on robes of the Catholic priests that are like red and they really stand out like a motherfucker with the hat, the whole bit. So I've been looking around and I had a series of options on my screen, and my daughter walks in and she's like, "Why are you looking at that?" I'm like, "No reason, just brainstorming. Are you gonna buy that?" I kind of just stopped and paused, and she's like, "Are you?" I'm like, "We're gonna buy two," and she's like, "Oh God, that's it." I don't know you. It's just like, because this is gonna get fun. It really is. But again, tastefully. I mean, we wouldn't want to make a belief in a fictitious man in the sky who's got a list of 10 rules that you have to follow sound ridiculous. We wouldn't want to take away any of that credibility, right? Like, so we definitely want to represent the foundation of Christianity, and we definitely will. Chapter and verse, in fact. Chapter and verse. And so I'm very excited about this.
Oh, likewise, dude. There's so much there. And there's so many topics like that, like, religion itself that people don't, even people who kind of do whatever they want online and like don't really give too many fucks. Like, that's something that almost everyone steers clear of. You'll see comedians poke fun at the religion stuff here and there, but even then, you get such a mob coming after you on like, TikTok, Instagram, anywhere, that most people just don't think it's worth it. But it's almost like such low-hanging fruit that it's not that hard to get people going, or even just to call it out, or there's so many options that people need to get triggered very quickly in order for people to stay away from those. And it really isn't that long ago that, people were able to burn you at the stake for talking about that stuff, even for mentioning it, even if they just didn't think, the Spanish Inquisition, like if they didn't think that you were a true believer, they'd be able to do shit. And like, I don't necessarily know all the history of all those things, but yeah, it's not that long ago that people were able to get very violent in response to these things. And I think we're just seeing, a lot of clapback from that people still stay away from them despite it, like, obviously being pretty destructive, like incredibly destructive. And I was thinking today just about, you know, selfishness versus selflessness and how much we, you know, live lives that are self-involved and like all these things that we deem to be, you know, even healthy things. You know, someone could spend their day, they wake up and, you know, go on a run, work out, go to church, work on something to make more money than they need, and then go through the Russell Brand sort of gauntlet of the ice bath, the tapping, the meditation, the praying, and all these things that are all like deemed to be healthy things by a lot of people. And most people wouldn't see any issue with that at all. And I'm also not saying that there's an issue necessarily, but it is selfish to do all those things. It's like, why do you go to church? Like, well, because I feel bad if I don't. Like, so you go every week. It's like, well, no, only when I'm feeling extra bad about myself to feel better, and you know, just enough to get me through. And it's just like it's all for me. It's all for me to feel better, and it's so obvious, but it kind of has this, you know, shine to it, this perceived shine to it. But it's just soothing people's fear. It's just manipulating people into giving money. And a lot of times, like the more money you give, the better off you think you're going to be. It's like there's so much there that isn't this like, you know, oh, it's just nice and good. It's a good thing. Let people believe what they want to believe. And it's like it's an underlying destructive thing. It's like in plain sight, but we don't want to look at because there's the big, I mean, fear of death, I think, is one of the biggest ones. So, all that said, we're going to have a lot of fun kind of pointing out these things and not even necessarily always, definitely not always in an aggressive way. Sometimes here and there, but a lot of times just in a very honest and frank way. So, yeah, I'm super excited for being there in Vancouver Island in person because there's so much that we can do.
For sure. You know, it's not just fear of death. It's fear. It's fear as a whole. Like we keep catering to fear. And in doing so, we make fear bigger. Like we actually make it a serious motivator in our life just by virtue of our reaction to it. And it's not just fear of death, it's a fear of a lot of things. Fear of not getting what I want, fear of not being enough unless I get what I want. Fuck, man. I was listening to this Instagram reel last night and I won't say how I came across it or who it is or anything like that, but it's a coach, and the message was, if you're feeling frustrated and down, and you're feeling like you're not enough, it's because you're not allowing yourself to want that thing enough. That was the message. Like if you want something and you're frustrated and you're hurting because of it, it's because you're not allowing yourself to want it enough. That's addict talk. Like if you just want it more, you'll get it. You know, all that suffering, all that frustration, all of that, judging yourself, all of that stuff, that's just a sign that you're not doing it enough. And that's that cognitive dissonance. We don't want to tie the two together. We don't want to tie the cessation of our fear with the perpetuation of that fear. We don't. We just want what we want. And we don't realize that it keeps us in this vicious loop.
And so that's why, like, kind of along those lines, you know, with manifestation journaling, people make legitimate videos where they write something down like, I'm so great. And I've have some videos out there where I'm doing this, like in the morning, manifesting, writing down, you know, I'm so grateful that I have $1 million. I'm so grateful that I have $1 million, and writing it like 500 times. There's people who do that, like fill journal entries, and it's like, this is a part of my morning routine. It's like, that is insane behavior. Admittedly, like I've done it. And it's all with this focus. And it's like, I never wanted to look at what I was trading to to get that thing because it was all, oh, it'll be worth it when I get it, but why do I want it? And what am I trading? Like, I'm trading life for this point in the future that's going to make me more, and it feels good to think about. And that's all it does. It just feels good. It's like, because it's not, I want $1,000,000. I want $1,000,000. It's, I have $1,000,000. And I'm so grateful that I have $1,000,000. It's like, it's just this kind of psychotic convincing to give yourself a good feeling. It's like giving yourself a hit of a drug, because it probably does release some, dopamine or serotonin or whatever chemical. I don't know exactly which one it's going to be, but you can look it up yourself if you want. It's going to release something like that. Just lying to yourself and telling yourself that you have something that you don't. So you just feel good. And what is that doing, though? What is that doing? It's just helping you feel good about the lack that you're reinforcing. So it's like, running after a carrot while whipping yourself and stabbing yourself with a stick. And yeah, just the way that we spend our lives selfishly and going through a day, waking up, run, workout, church, meditation, sauna, ice bath, tapping, more prayer, blah, blah, blah. It's like all things to feel better about myself. That's like not an uncommon way for someone to spend their day, but it's like this vicious loop of like, I feel terrible because I'm so focused on myself, and I'm going to keep focusing on myself. And I do all these things for my mental health. I'm working out for my mental health. I'm running for my mental health. I'm going to church for my mental health. I'm making more money for my mental health. And it's like the whole time, it's like, hold up. Why do you have to work on your mental health so much? Is it because everything you do is focused on yourself? I can certainly say for myself, it has been. I'm not saying that I don't act selfishly and haven't acted selfishly throughout my life. I'm just saying there's a connection there. I'm just saying that there is a like directly tied together connection with how focused we are on ourselves, but we don't want to look at that. It's just, no, I'm doing it for this, but it's like, hold up. There's something there. There's a common root to all these things.
This is why, the expression "it is what it is" so fucking powerful, right? Because it's unarguable. My opinion of it is kind of, irrelevant to what it is right now. But we don't like that. We want to have that opinion. We want to have that thought of what it should be. We want to have that sense of control. We want to have that want, right? And thus we perpetuate the need, right? And it's so interesting to watch. But I mean, on the other hand, it's understandable. Like, it's a hell of a loop. And it really does. It's perpetuated by the system that we live within to a very large degree. But I want to stop here for a second because this is a social episode and we got actually quite a few people watching at the moment. Hello, everyone. We appreciate you being here. If you're on Instagram, whatever it is they do on Instagram to show you like the thing, please do that. We appreciate the support. As always, after this, in 45 minutes from now, exactly, we're going to be hosting a call-in show where you can actually be on the podcast for up to 10 minutes. You can share your point of view. You can ask a question. You can air a grievance. You can insult me if you really want to. It's not that it's that uncommon. The point being is that you can be a part of the Dualistic Unity podcast. If you haven't heard of the Dualistic Unity podcast as yet, go and check it out. It's a good podcast. As you can tell, we talk about life, being ourselves, and all of the silliness that goes with taking the idea of ourselves very seriously. Because that's what we end up doing. Going back to your conversation about Russell Brand, for example, and it's not Russell Brand necessarily, but it's a common thing, and you especially see it in spiritual communities. We suffer through this negative idea of ourselves because as long as you have an idea of yourself and you're living in, let's just say you live within the world of the superficial, that's where you come out of high school. You're like, yes, I have to dress right, act right, have the right job, have more money, have the right car, live in a big house, blah, blah, blah. So you just live there. Okay. And you do your best to live up to those expectations, to the assumptions of what that is. You do your best to live up to the right path. And as you can never do that, because you can always compare to others and you're always comparing to your assumptions of others, you're always going to look at it as though there are people who are doing better than you. And you will start to feel the weight that goes with that. And you will try to keep up and you will feel more weight until eventually you go, oh my God, I keep thinking about myself as this person who just has to go to work and is part of the system and is a body in the world. And all these thoughts, they suck. They're dragging me down. I'm not a human being. I'm a spiritual being having a human experience. I am an enlightened aspect of a non dual universe. I am an energetic contraction, and I am coming up with every idea I can on the opposite side of that very mundane spectrum that I've been living in my whole life, hoping that that idea is somehow not going to lead to the same fucking weight. And it does, because it operates in the same environment of comparison and assumption and identity. You're still thinking about yourself like it's the truth. You're still thinking that the idea of you, no matter what spectrum it's on or where in the spectrum it is reflective of the truth. And so now there's a right way to do it. There's a right way to live. There is an assumption that your value goes up and down according to that idea and how well you live up to it. It doesn't matter what the idea is. The idea is poison when taken as truth. And it's just accepting the uncertainty of that, accepting that what is. It's not what you think it is, it's what it is. And that's where you're able to actually interact with it, in alignment with it, with sensitivity and empathy and intelligence and all of that, because you're actually paying attention to what's here now instead of the fictions in your head based on what you're afraid of or what you think you want. But that means we have to let go of this measurement that we have of how we're doing, of this belief that we have that we can measure our progress, that it's within our ability to know how we're doing as if we're separate from everything else. It's just letting that fiction go and living your life. And that's why when somebody says it is what it is, that's a great sign. And it might sound depressing. I know a lot of people who'd go, well, where's your wonder? Where's your belief? It's found here and now by not getting in the way, not by projecting something that soothes me in the short term and causes me pain in the long term. It's just being willing to recognize that it causes you pain in the long term. And if you're invested in that idea of yourself, you don't want to tie those two together. You don't want to look at it. You don't want to go, oh, the thing that I'm holding on to for safety is causing the fear. Because that would suck, because then you have to go back to the blackboard or the drawing board or fucking square one.
But Ray, what about all the fairies? What about all the magical things that are out there in all those other dimensions and all the intergalactic wars going on? Like, is that not something that we should focus on and prioritize? And it's so fascinating how like all of those are just tactics to take us from the suffering that we think we have to run from instead of look at. Like, if everyone's got some stuff, if everyone's got some way that they have the potential to view themselves negatively, some things that they think are wrong with themselves, and we're all just, piling things on top to feel better about it, looking around to see how we compare to everyone else who's doing the same thing, all like too afraid to even interact with each other because we feel like there's so much that we got to hide and keep at bay. Like, what if we stopped? What if we stopped? And it's like, what if I stopped? That's all we can do. That's all I can do is me and live my life. And I'm finding even just today, because I'm going to be on Vancouver Island tomorrow. Very, very excited, checking out some apartments. And I feel like a part of me is just starting to actually live my life, actually make decisions that are just my own, not looking around, not asking around, not necessarily following things that I always thought were the best thing for me or the way that I thought my life should be lived, and in different ways doing less of that. And I'm finding that there's less judgment in that. Like, it's not to say that I'm not going to get into plenty of uncomfortable situations, but it's it's like at least I'm making the calls on my life. At least I'm like whatever decisions I make, it's like I'm living with that, and it's not in an attempt to be something. And so there isn't so much of a spectrum. It's not to say that a bunch of stuff isn't going to come up, and as I get into more new things and different things and uncomfortable situations, that all sorts of triggers aren't going to come up. But I've been feeling just a difference in that, like I'm not, like, knowing that you're not running so much from being yourself. Like, there's been almost more of a settling into that, or like a weight. Like, admittedly, and I've mentioned this a few times, like, I moved back to New York as out of like sort of a last ditch desire to, maintain what I've always known and not jump in to a new thing. But and we've spoken about this. There was, I think, maybe not a necessity necessarily, but I think it was good for me to realize and see New York for what it is, from my perspective. And I'm not, you can say whatever you want about New York, whether you like it, whether you don't like it, but a part of me had to see it now and where I'm at now. And exactly, it happened. Was it meant to be? Well, it happened. So yes and no. But yeah, and it did give me an appreciation. And I think if I had just like not come back and lived here, I would have been doing it not from a place of like my own decision. It was like, oh, this is, a thing I should do, instead of this is now a thing I want to do. And it's like, how do I want to live my life? What do I want to do? Like, I'm not really as focused on building myself, like all those things that I went through, like going through all the ways that we try and just feel better about ourselves, live on this sort of never ending track loop of self improvement that doesn't exist. Like, it doesn't exist. Self improvement doesn't exist. You're not improving anything. You can improve at things, but you're not improving yourself. And the less priority there is on, or a belief that you could improve yourself, it's like the more things are just there, the less weight there is, the less there is in the way. So, um, yeah, I was going somewhere with that, but I'll stop now.
I think one of your recent insights that I really enjoyed was you were walking down the street in New York. You're like, you know what I just noticed? There's no animals here. And what I enjoyed about that is that that's one of those things that you would notice when all of a sudden they become a consideration, like as equals, where all of a sudden you're like, there seems to be a lot less diversity around me. And I'm thinking, we always think of diversity like human diversity, right? But really, I mean, animals are just as much us as everything else. And so you really start to get an appreciation for that. Again, that's one of the reasons I went to the bush. It's one of the reasons I live on the island where I live, is because I appreciate the nature around me. I like the fact that I went for a walk in the park that's like 2 blocks from my house yesterday. Huge ass park, which and my daughter and I are just kind of meandering through. Ran a, ran across 2 baby deer, just chilling out, doing their thing. They just kind of looked at us. We were maybe 10, 15 feet away. We weren't very far at all. They just kind of looked at us like, hi. That was it. And we just kept on moving. There's owls hooting, there's bald eagles flying over, like it's almost like we're going to start seeing some of the migration for seals coming up through the island, because we have 2 different breeds of seals that cross paths around, I think it's March or April, in fact. So you're going to see a lot of that happening off the water. And of course, with that comes a whole shit ton of orcas, right? Because they like the food. Right. So it's a dope place when you really look at just how much is happening without humans being in there at all. Like I love to go down to the beach and just sit like on the rocks, and then all of a sudden I'll look and there's like 1,000 things crawling underneath the rocks, and like 1,000 things that are feeding on them, and then all of a sudden the birds are coming down, and like there's just this giant complex system happening all the time, and you don't see it when you're too busy looking at the complex system, quote unquote, that is New York City traffic, right? Or the transit system. You actually start to think that human complexity is in any way equal to the complexity of life around you. And that really does change your view of things as you grow up. So all of a sudden, yeah, going into nature changes your view of a lot of things, including how complex you are.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And like even just like jumping into something entirely uncertain, like moving back to New York, it's like everything I was moving back for was things that I've, done before, things that I've and the reasons that I did them aren't reasons that I look to so much anymore. Like so much of New York is straight up out of It's a Wonderful Life, Pottersville. Like it's a city full of distractions. Like that was always my thing about it was like, yeah, after college, it was great in the sense of just kind of my weekly routine being go to work, get a work happy hour like on a Friday usually, and then go out with friends on Saturday, and then hang out with people Sunday, and then go back to work Monday through Friday. And just kind of that over and over and over. And there wasn't really a whole lot to do. There is other things, and it's just, part of it was me not doing other things, but there is a limit, and there's, a focus on going out to a bar or going out to a restaurant to eat, and there's not necessarily a whole lot else. And again, there's other activities, I know, but there's not a huge variety. And there's to get to nature, it's like you got Central Park, and that's, borderline nature, but it's like outside of that, you got to venture outside the city. It takes like an hour to get to any legitimate like forest at least. And so, yeah, it just stopped making as much sense. But again, and I thought about, because when I traveled last year, I really liked San Diego, I really liked Austin. And even with those, I was like, yeah, but I don't know as much going on there. Like New York is very familiar to me. I have a lot of friends, a lot of family who live here, and just like a lot of things that I've always done. And I've always gravitated towards those things, towards my comfort zone, towards the familiar. And it's exciting because I feel a lot different in a lot of ways. And I feel like there's been a part of me that as I've been, peeling back layers, breaking myself down, not doing as many things to try and make myself feel better so much. Like I feel a lot more relaxed in a lot of ways. Like I feel like a very different person, but here I am like a very different person. Like I would say very incomparable to me like, 4 years, 5 years ago, and yet I'm in the same spot, and it's like, all right, something's not adding up here. Something's not matching up because the reasons for being here just don't make as much sense to me anymore. And so, yeah, I'm very excited because I haven't admittedly like there's been points in my life like going to a new school or new for college, like didn't know anyone really going to college and met a bunch of people, and it was a whole big change and new thing and different thing. And going to a company after college, it's like other things, but like haven't for a while. And I think since COVID, it's been a lot of rotationally the same sort of stuff. And so yeah, I'm super excited because I don't know what it's gonna be like. Like I'm very excited, and there's a lot, and like Vancouver Island is fucking dope. But I don't know. And there's an excitement in that because it's like, yeah, but I got me. Yeah, but I got me. And there's something there that I haven't necessarily had a ton of faith in throughout my life out of, I don't know, a lack of need to, a lack of push to, a lack of reason to. Just kind of been like, oh, well, you can just stay comfortable, and then you don't have to have as much faith in yourself.
It's funny because I'm hearing the exact same thought process that happened for me before I went to the forest for 8 months. Right? I just want it to be me. Like none of the comforts, none of the stuff that I could lean on, right? To say, I'm grateful because of this, right? And it's very hard to be grateful when you're hungry and wet, right? Like it really is. But that's the point, is that it's not impossible to not be grateful, but to actually get past the need to be, to let go of your opinion of the situation to such a point where it actually is just what it is. And in that, you can do something with it instead of trying to superimpose something over top of it so that you can cope with it enough to do something with it, which means, of course, you're missing something. You're blinding yourself all the time. Right. So, yeah, it's just that space, man. It's just that time. It really is. It's like, I don't even know what it is to just be me and make my own choices. And all of a sudden, you just want more room and less distractions. And it's a period of reflection to a very large degree and expression. This is typically where you would go off to start writing your great novel, or start, painting your self-portrait or something like that. Like this is typically that point in your life where you're like, Jesus, I just want to sink into my life. And it's important to go through that. It really is. And I appreciate the fact that you're not taking it to the same extreme that I did, because you don't need to, frankly. I mean, I did because I had been through a lot of scarcity in my life and yet still managed to hold on to the small comforts that I had as self-defining, even if it was a negative definition, because everybody had more and so on and so forth. It was still there. So finally, I'm like, fuck it, I'm going full homeless. Like I'm just going to the forest, and everybody can judge me if they want to, and many people did. Right, but I didn't care. It wasn't about them. And what was funny is that at that point, my glasses broke, and so I couldn't see for the like 7.5 months of that time in the forest. And so all of a sudden, I just stopped caring if they were judging me. Isn't that funny? You can't look at their faces and make an assumption of what they're thinking, so you just stop making the assumption. I noticed that very much, and I've never really lost that mentality since. Even after I got glasses again, it's like I can see your judgmental face, but it still doesn't fucking matter because you're not judging me. I'm just assuming you're judging me. I'm assuming you're judging me because I assume when I'm judging that it's about you or whoever I'm judging, and it's not somehow about me. But once you start to recognize that all you're doing is judging based on how you judge yourself, then people aren't looking at you, and you know it. You know they're not looking at you. That judgmental face has nothing to do with you and everything to do with the pain that they're going through. So it stops mattering. Right. But you need that space to be able to find that place in yourself where you're just thinking for yourself. You're not reacting to everything, trying to fit in, trying to live relative to a world that is ultimately just fictional. And that's very much why I like my space. That's very much why, like, I can just sit in my fucking yard all day and I'm happy as a lamb. Like, I really am. And it's just because I know that any obligation I'm putting on myself, anything I was like, oh, I should be doing this, I should be more productive, I should be doing, it's all just my own shit. I could quite as easily just go, yeah, but I also work a lot, and this is important. Relax and appreciate life, and remember what the fuck I'm working for. And there's a bunch of other things that could be happening right now, and that's all true too. You don't have to think about any of that. Just do what you're doing. So I'm very excited. I'm curious to see how this goes. I'm also stoked to get involved with Fidelium because I know we want to talk to them about learning music. And that's going to be a fun expression on Dualistic Unity. That'll be a hell of a series for sure. Check out Fidelium, by the way. You can get their album there, or follow them on Spotify, or check them out on Instagram or TikTok at Fidelium. They are amazing. Can't express that enough. We have a whole episode with Trish as our guest. And at the end of that episode, there's a full 2 songs back to back that Fidelium recently played at one of their performances. I can't recommend checking that out enough. It's fucking amazing.
Oh yeah, I'm so pumped to be involved with them and what they're doing, and like just that being just like something, because why not? It's like there's something going on in reality that's cool. Kids expressing themselves and being really fucking good at it, and having this opportunity to play in front, and like everything that Trish is doing with them and Jeff. It's Jeff, right? Her husband. Yeah. The two of them. And I'm pumped to meet Jeff at some point and meet Trish in person and
He's
hear
going to be a
Fidel.
good guest.
Yeah.
Jeff is amazing. Like the simple fact that I think he said something along the lines like he's taken 3 or 4 months of lessons in his life. Like the rest is all self-taught.
Damn, that's cool. That's really cool. Because I got my guitar back, and I've yet to even open it back up, but I'll get to it. I'll get to it at some point, and just like to fuck around with it, like get it tuned back up,
Well,
and
that's
just
it. He said something recently. Sorry to cut you off, but I just
okay.
want to throw this in there because this is something I think both of us would appreciate as a skill. He's like, if I don't play it, just give it to me. I'll have it figured out shortly. That, that in itself, because all you're doing then is just figuring out how it expresses music, how it expresses the notes, and his understanding of why the notes make sense. So it's not about just learning the instrument. He actually understands music. So I'm very excited.
Man, that is so cool. Yeah, a lot of symbolism in that, and just like fuck it, I'll figure it out. That mentality, like how much that just can go for everything. And that in itself, because I've always thought, like, oh, if someone's good at singing or good at an instrument, it's just natural. They're just born with it. And it's just a way to like not look at it yourself, not being willing to admit that there is a way to improve those things. Like, I straight up thought with singing that you're either good or you're not. And that's it. And I just wasn't a good singer. And so I was like, what's the point of even doing it at all? Like, oh, I'm just bad at it. And that's gone for so many things in my life, bro. So yeah, just being able to do that stuff and like get involved in things. And there's something else besides Fidelium you were talking about, but um yeah, just being able to try different things and have the space and be able to just do things for myself and make decisions for myself because I can and not really like know that I don't need anything. And like, relatively given our upbringings, I think just me moving to Vancouver Island. Oh, that's what it was is with the, you go into the forest and people judging. It's like, I'm sure there'll be that stuff come up. Like people are gonna be, oh, Andrew's starting a cult. Oh, they're doing this stuff. Oh, what's going on there? And it's like, again, it's like, oh, is it egotistical for me to assume that people are gonna say anything? It's like maybe, I don't know. It's gonna happen. And again, it is what it is. So it's nice to even like have that, like if it were to happen, to have it happen and to be able to look at it and be like, but I don't care. But like, hold on. I don't I don't care. And that's kind of the end of that conversation because again, people think that like their judgment. I had a kid who early on when I started posting content, he was like I was talking with him and he's like, dude, what's going on with like the social media stuff? Like what's going on with that? Like, like what are you doing? I'm like, I'm just making videos, expressing myself, sharing things. Like, yeah, it's kind of like crazy, right? I'm like, hold up. Do you think I care what you think of me posting videos? Like I'm living my life doing this thing and you're making some passing judgments and you think that I care about what you think. That's funny to me. That's very way funnier than anyone posting some videos online that you actually think that your opinion is going to have sway over what I do and how I live, but we assume that it does a lot of times. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting, fun, excited to dig into whatever's about to happen. And I had the thought, have you thought of or have you come across Casey Neistat or heard of him?
Negative.
Okay. He's a big YouTube vlogger, like started vlogging years ago, made a bunch of videos, but he started doing a vlog every day for I think he ended up doing it for a year or 2 years every single day. And I forgot that he started doing that not just like to vlog his life because he was building a company or an app or something. And so he actually started doing them as a way to document his process and it turned into a thing on its own. Like he has like 12 million subscribers on YouTube because they're very unique kind of fun videos, but it was all started around building his app, which like sometimes he mentioned, sometimes he didn't. And so it hit me yesterday. This was outside of remembering that he did that, that like, oh yeah, I could absolutely start doing a daily vlog showing the process of, with some catchy hook, like day one of documenting building the process of or building a business that isn't trying to make money, or something like that. Something that's like different. It's like, wait a second. And then as people have questions, can just respond to those. And like, my content turning much more from just like the text someone today, turn from the talkie to the walkie in a lot of ways, which I'm excited for. And then it's just like anything we do can just film some stuff about it, and it's all sort of circling around. It's like, you want to know why we're doing this? Start listening to season 1 of the podcast.
Man, like we could do just an episode on why we use the podcast platform we use. Like we could talk about some of the considerations that we put into our email campaigns. We can talk about how we built our website and why that's important. We can talk about just half the shit that we've learned in a lifetime. Like, especially from like, you are in digital advertising, you're on the social media side. I ran a web design and marketing company for 15 years. Like, these are all things why we have articles, why we're on Reddit, why, like, if you look Dualistic Unity up, we're the first 5 pages. Like, there's a reason all of that is the truth. And so we can make a series on that that's useful to people, that's actually showing them like, yeah, here's the mentality behind it, here's all the shit that we actually go through. And you can do the same thing. And here's all the doubts I had today, and here's how I ignored them and got that shit done anyway. That's going to be a dope series. We got about 2 minutes left, so I just want to remind everybody, if you're enjoying this, join us at twitch.tv/Dualistic Unity in like 15 minutes for a call-in show where you can be on the episode. Enjoy the podcast if you'd like to just join in the comment section, or call in and be on the show for up to 10 minutes.
Yes, definitely tune into the call-in show. Even if you don't call in, it's always nice to get people on there. But again, it's a podcast episode. So if you have something to say, something to share, you got a business that you're doing, you want to talk about it for a little bit, anyone can join. Open-ended. You have some grievances, some judgments, some thoughts, anything. It's all on the table. So come with all of it. But yeah, this has been a lot of fun. I appreciate everyone for tuning in. Got a number of people who have been on Instagram. Sophie, good to see you. Yeah, I just got 2 new hats because I was getting tired of just like my hair. It was starting to get in my eyes a little bit, so I was like, all right, it's time for a hat.
This is that point where you just got to keep growing it till it gets past that point. It's kind of like the beard, there's a point where it comes in, we're like, that is annoyingly long, but once it gets past there, you're gold.
Goes from like really coarse and thick to a little softer as it goes. Yeah, that the softness, I'm already at the softness because mine isn't that fucking thick. But
yeah, that's nice. I still got a wire bristle happening over here, regardless of the length. One last mention for everybody who's watching: we are doing an expansion of Dualistic Unity LLC, because that actually does exist. We do exist within the corporate fucking bullshit world. That said, we're looking for investors. This is an investment, not a donation. You're not supporting the podcast. You are actually being a big part of it growing. There is an ROI that we will discuss with you. We have an investment presentation coming up in the next week or two. If you are interested, just fill out the form at this link. There's no obligation whatsoever. And that's all we got to say for today. We will see you in 15 minutes for the call-in show.